Hello everybody, it's me Teddy back with another UI UX class assignment. This couple of weeks we were supposed to be working on the wireframes for our prototype. Unfortunately, due to me moving throughout this entire process, I unfortunately was not able to invest anywhere near as much time into my prototype wireframe as I would like. There are certain functionalities that are still kind of like eluding me on how to get them done. Um, but I did want to put the bones in there because they needed to be in there for the next portion of the steps. Anyways, so we're just going to talk a little bit about my schemata here, and we're going to go talk about the user flow and what they would go through and talk about different elements within the screen. So the functioning requirements that we want to cover and go over in this are the user authentication and authorization, aka creating the account, signing in, the location-based radar event search, aka seeing where there are tournaments that are available, what the browse page would look like, event registration flow, and then the automated event reminders. Now, granted, like I said, some of these functions are not 100% up and running yet, but we do have enough of a flow that we can go through and do this. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm just going to pop this over to the side, and I'm going to pop this to the side here. And we're just going to make sure that they actually snap in the grid here. Boop. Make sure you're actually snapped into grid here. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring our functional requirements over here so we can see it on this side. Minimize that. Move my image over here a little bit. Granted, it's not really centered because it's not meant for this kind of display. It is, like I said, iOS and Android compatible because that is part of the requirements for this app. It needs to be able to be used on the go. It needs to be used one-handed, and it needs to be not bulky and or hard to navigate if you have a bunch of equipment with you. That being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Let's go and walk through the user flow here. So first, when we get to our homepage, if you are not a user, you should see two boxes. Or if you're not signed in, you should see two boxes rather. One, you should see your login button up here. Two, down here, you see a button that says new to spin detect, and I do apologize, my scrolling functionality is being kind of weird. But we're going to go ahead and click new to spin detect. We're going to walk through the user flow of the person creating their account and what it would do when they go to sign in. Okay, so first we would go here. And as you can see, there is a back button. So if somebody wants to back out of it, it can back out of it. Now they would put in their full information here. And this is not necessarily a requirement, but I feel like it's a good way for somebody to interact with others who may be at their appropriate skill level. If you're a child, you don't want to be walking in a tournament full of, veteran adults who have been playing competitive Beyblade since, the first iteration came back out in the early 2000s. That would be a very one-sided fist fight, so to speak. So I felt like that was a good thing to incorporate in there, but once the user would go ahead and populate all that information in, they'll go ahead and create account. It'll take the user back to the sign-in page, which then they would be able to log in and get dumped back out here to our home page here. So let me just go ahead and go back real quick. Now that we are here, I'm going to full screen here. We're going to go over a bit more of some of the functional requirements that were required for this presentation. First, we're going to start out with some of the UI elements. Obviously, we have our placeholders for our pictures here. Generally, what these should be it's like a Google Maps post or a Google Street image of what that business looks like. just so if a user can go, where the heck is this business? And they can just tap on the image and then they can see that, hey, it's in this business plaza next to restaurant and, and or other restaurant, So some of the other functional requirements within it, as you can see here, we have our placeholder for our radar. It is various different pings or pins put on them. These will represent some of the tournaments that show up here. They are not an actual reflection. None of these places currently in here are real. These are all placeholder places. So next we are going to go to... we're going to go to our browse tournaments here. And as you can see here, we can search by a name. Do apologize. My page is a little wonky with the tournament card here. But you can, in fact, search by name or location. You can filter it. You can sort by date. But the reason why we're coming here is because when you go to browse, or if you go to search for a tournament on a home page here, it will dump you into these. These are some featured tournaments that may be in your area that you haven't necessarily sent a notification for. Think of these as like a, YouTube algorithm. It lets you know, hey, what videos it thinks you might recommend. It can also recommend tournaments to you based in your radius. So back to the browse here. As you can see here from my home page and from every other one of my pages, we have our navigation bar at the bottom, and all of them do in fact navigate. And if, I'm on this page, none of these will get locked in here. So back to our browse here. We're going to go ahead and click into an event. As you can see here, this is our event card. It has a bit of information about the event, the placeholder image. Like I said before, it will take the same image from the first homepage that we saw or the browse information page. It will be a more blown up version of that. Tournament information details, so like the start time, the location of where it's at, because some people like to do the Google Maps and GPS. Some people like to do visuals, etc., etc. Generally, it tells you the distance away, so you don't have to do any guesswork there. Key parts that I think are important that I didn't originally include in this, but I am including in the information card because I do think this is important. So we do not run into another anime expo where there's only 127 spots and nobody knows about, how many are left, right? So this is going to be this little indicator icon right here that shows you how many spots are left open in that tournament. I do believe in a perfect world, would like to have the app track how many people sign up for a tournament and deduct those numbers down from that. But since this is just a prototype and I'm not exactly, making this a fully functional website, I just have it be at the behest of whoever is setting up the event. They would have to track that. I also put in a section for any entry fees because some places do, in fact, win. There are prizes to win and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that we're putting any entry fees, etc. in there. Next, we're going to go over here to our full tournament information page. And as you can see here, this is a more blown up version of the event card. This is directly where the user will begin their process to sign up for a tournament. Because let's say, you don't want the user to get to this page first without going to a card, because let's say this information doesn't match what they want. It's a lot easier to back out of the card than to have to navigate multiple screens back to get away from this page. But this is the full tournament page. As you can see here, up here will be the place for the tournament. Like let's say they have a specific logo. I'm thinking along the lines of like the World Beyblade Organization. They have their own identifiable. Hasbro may have their own, identifiable logo to recognize their brand. Same with Takara Tomy. Those images, essentially those logos, those brands, whoever's hosting the tournament can be put up here. I don't want to have it be a third place where you would go and find the image of the property. So I chose to make this one specifically be, whatever brand logo. Hasbro or Takara Tomy is like, hey, Beyblade X, they have specific nomenclature for this stuff. So we want to make sure that, that properly is coming through, so there is no confusion as to what's fan events, what's, officially supported material, without having to bog their page down. A bit more information about this page, as you can see from our standard tournament card. As you can see here, there's a bit more about the information. So, like, let's say it's a yearly event, you could put in this, hey, this is a year end of year event. This happens every year in, say, October, November. I'm thinking of like League of Legends Worlds. Generally, you tend to let people know ahead about time, a little preview event, here's the event where the world's greatest clash, blah, 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 blah. So that little blurb is in there. Also below it is more important details, like when check-in times start, when our players meeting up. Another good information point to put here, the skill level of the tournament. It might not be something like the World Championships is not necessarily, by the way, World Championships is a placeholder name. I have to disclaim that Takara Tomy recently changed it away from the Beyblade World Championship to the Beyblade Grand Prix Finals, something like that. But the distraction aside, we want to make sure that everybody's going to age-appropriate events, skill-appropriate events. Again, here we show the skill level. We also show the format of the tournament, whether it's a single elimination bracket, double elimination bracket, and also let the user know if there's prizes there. So if we hit register now, the user should be taken to a register confirmation. They would put in their payment information, and then secondly, they would get this. There, they can save it to their calendar. They can download a confirmation PDF, maybe get a like a QR code or something generated that they can just go to the tournament and scan, and it pull up the tournament user's information. That way they can check in. So let's go ahead and back over here. We're going to go back to our tournament. Over here, next we would go to set the reminder. Obviously, if we hit cancel, it backs out. We hit the X, nothing happens. It's kind of redundant, but that X there is like a little placeholder for... I like to put in different Beyblade themed logos, stuff like that. So there might be a like specific Beyblade themed bell icon, that I'll throw in there in the future. I just wanted to put that little X box there as a reminder of myself that it's a placeholder for an image, but it is not necessarily a placeholder for the images that are going to be used as logos or property locations. But as you can see, you cancel, it closes out when you hit set reminder. This is part of the functionality I'm getting tripped up on. I would like to have this click and have it actually create the reminder and use the move the user to their reminder page. So there is functionality I am still working on this. So I do apologize. Once we go to the registration page and it's confirmed, from there we will add extra functionality to it that will dump the user back to the home screen, or we can have them, just click down here into one of the elements to back out there. From there, they will be able to go to different things like see their reminder. As you can see here, it registered for the Spring Championship 2026. This little pop-up that shows them the status. And that's pretty much it that I can think of. I'm gonna go ahead back out into my actual program here, get out of my flow. And I just want to talk about a little bit about the functional requirements that they're essentially hitting. Now, as I mentioned before, this is the functional requirements of user authentication and authorization. This is the flow that the user will go through. which then eventually will dump them back out here. This is kind of a loop. Yeah, like I said, to make it work and make it dump everything in there, it's a bit harder. For me, I tend to go 0 to 100. I understand that this is not to make it fully functioning. But for me, if I did, it would literally link that right back there once they actually input their information and sign in and or create their information. A bit more of the event registration functionality. Like I said, we have our event reminder card. The reminders, there are two places to get to information for tournaments. There's your standard browse tournament way, but there's also the reminders tab. If you go into the reminders tab, this is one thing I did want to talk about while I was here. If you go into the reminders tab and you click on a tournament, it should in fact pull up that tournament card as well. That way you can, have another way to get around the website without just meeting a dead end. But yeah, these are my wireframes for my Spin Detect project. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys have a great day.